Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing battles featuring a rare shadow Pokemon that completely took the Louisville Pokemon Go Regional Championships by storm, and that is Shadow Kanto Marowak. Shadow Kanto Marowak hasn't been in Rocket Grunts in over 2 full years, with its only appearance since being a brief availability in Shadow Raids about a year ago. And 2 Shadow Kanto Marowaks placed in the top 3 of this tournament. So this is a Pokemon Niantic has to bring back because it is absolutely overpowered right now. Today, I'm going to be showcasing some highlighted battles from the regional champion of the event, Lyle Jeffs, and his dominant run with the Shadow Kanto Marowak. The team around it features Dugong, Shadow Drapion, Malamar, Azumarill, and Toxapex. Lyle's first stream match of the day was the group semifinals versus 610 Hero, and 610's team is so weak to Shadow Kanto Marowak. Drapion, Toxapex, and Dunsparce get completely destroyed, and all 6 Pokemon, none of them have a resist to ground. The leads are set for game 1, and it's the perfect lead for Lyle. Toxapex into Azumarill, Shadow Drapion save switch for 610 Hero, immediately answered with the Shadow Kanto Marowak. One of the many great things about the Shadow Kanto Marowak is it completely destroys Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion, as long as you switch in a reasonable amount of time, is never going to be able to force a shield from the Shadow Kanto Marowak without first giving up a shield itself. And now we're going to see Shadow Kanto Marowak very happy to match shields, farm all the way down, and even exit with energy to get a little bit of chip damage onto the Azumarill. And again, Lyle's going to be basically running the Shadow Kanto Marowak every single game because there is not a Pokemon on 610's team that has a ground resist. In the back is the Shadow Quagsire for 610 Hero, and that will be swiftly answered with the Malamar. Malamar going to fire off this Foul Play. Foul Play, I mean, you have to shield this as 610. The Quagsire is the only hope of ever getting rid of that Toxapex. Malamar is going to use its final shield as well. Malamar trying to get to the move and does get there. 610 Hero unable to get the catch. Foul Play is going to connect. Able to bank an Aqua Tail, send in the Azumarill, but at this point it's just too little too late. 610 Hero, as many battlers do in the current Open Great League format, trusting in that Shadow Drapion save switch, as it has almost no hard counters, but that's why Lyle brought the Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back, searching for that Shadow Drapion save switch, destroying it, and leading to a Game 1 win. Lyle's running the same team in game number 2, and we see 610 Hero actually picking up technically a positive lead for him as he leads the Drapion into the Toxapex. But Toxapex can survive 2 drill runs, so for Toxapex being in this matchup, this is genuinely not bad. Sludge Wave is going to land, that does huge damage. We're going to see a save switch to the Shadow Kanto Marowak, and Shadow Kanto Marowak is going to be answered with the Shadow Quagsire. The no shield from Lyle, he is going to be letting that Aqua Tail through. And look at this, the Shadow Kanto Marowak able to tank the Aqua Tail, land the Bone Club, dealing big damage, and outpace and potentially force a shield or switch advantage. 610 Hero is going to surrender switch advantage, letting that through, and now brings in the Shadow Drapion. These Mud Slaps doing significant damage. Drapion up energy will prove to be problematic for Lyle though. Lyle ended up save switching that Marowak. Marowak so safe into his team, but this now means that the Drapion is going to be a big issue. 2 shields left for 610 Hero. He will shield up even though it is going to be the more expensive and resisted Foul Play. Lyle not wanting to debuff himself, but down this much energy, he's in a very tough spot. At this point, we see a crunch debuff as well, and now a switch back into the Dunsparce. Dunsparce gets the connect with a drill run, but at this point, the Shadow Drapion's energy is just going to be too much to deal with. Lyle is going to try and just concede a farm down so he can get energy on his Malamar, but 610 says no. 610 is going to leave with so much energy on this Drapion. Drapion gets to fire off the Aqua Tail into the crunch, and that is going to be a Game 2 win for 610 Hero, able to fight back against the Marowak and force a Game 3. Hopping into the third match here, we see the Malamar into the Shadow Quagsire, and again, that Kanto Marowak lurking in the back, ever deadly. 610 Hero has benched the Drapion, instead choosing to bring Azumarill, trying to use the Azumarill to hit that Shadow Kanto Marowak with super effective damage. Malamar is going to no-shield the Aqua Tail, Malamar continuing the farm. Malamar will have to shield here, as Aqua Tail would be knocking out, and we are going to see at least 1 shield used from Lyle. Lyle, if he wants to, can double shield and win the 2s. 610 Hero is going to double shield, and now Lyle has a choice. Does he elect to shield here? No, he's surrendering switch advantage, and surrendering switch advantage does mean that his Shadow Kanto Marowak is going to be aligned against the Azumarill. This is not looking great for Lyle. The Aqua Tail lands on the Drapion. Lyle overfarms and will pick up the knockout with the Aqua Tail onto the Quagsire. What does 610 Hero decide to bring in here? 610 is going to bring in the Azumarill. Azumarill, a complete wall to the energy from the Shadow Drapion. Drapion fires off the Crunch, and now it's time. Shadow Kanto Marowak enters the field against a Water type. This is not a good matchup for the Shadow Kanto Marowak. But the Shadow Kanto Marowak, these Mud Slaps are tearing through the Azumarill. Azumarill has the Ice Beam, but would lose the CMP tie and get knocked out. This forces 610 to switch into the Toxapex. This technically is a catch, but it's super effective damage. 610 had to do that to preserve the Ice Beam, but now the Toxapex is just getting completely destroyed by the Shadow K-Wack. It just seems absolutely inevitable in this endgame. Azumarill fires off the Ice Beam to pick up the knockout. The Drapion is very low. Can Lyle get to the move? Yes, he can. He gets the Aqua Tail, and thanks to the Shadow Kanto Marowak masterclass in Game 3, he's advancing to the group finals. And in the group finals, he was going up against SJ, who was running Shadow Feraligatr, Diggersby, Toxapex, Shadow Drapion, Pangoro, and Malamar. So again, a team that does not have a ground resist. So what does he have in the back? He has the Shadow Kanto Marowak. This is technically a lost lead for Lyle, as he does lead the Azumarill into the Shadow Feraligatr. However, Azumarill does win the Zero Protect Shield. So, out of this matchup, as the Azumarill player, you can usually grab shields from your opponent, and then you just try and sweep with shield advantage in the endgame. This Feraligatr can reach 2 more Hydro Cannons before the next play rough is reached, and he's able to do just that. Oh, he actually could have thrown there, but decided not to. Could have thrown the Hydro Cannon to force a shield, but instead, SJ is going to go for a full farm down and exit with 100 energy. In comes Toxapex. We're going to see a pivot out to the Malamar. And now, for Lyle, honestly, this is not terrible to stay in this matchup. This Malamar does not have the Psywave breakpoint. If you run a particularly high attack weight Malamar, your Psywaves do 3 damage instead of 2 to Toxapex, so it turns it from a neutral matchup into a completely dominant one. This is an amazing no-shield by Lyle, understanding that the Hydro Cannons from this Feraligatr would do more. In comes the Feraligatr, and now the Marowak still has the 2 shields available, saving the shields for the moves that do the most damage. Feraligatr is going to be firing off the Hydro Cannon. We will see the shield. Going for this Bone Club right away. Could have done one more Mud Slap, but not wanting to risk it, just looking to pick up the knockout. In comes the Shadow Drapion. Drapion able to outpace by 1 turn. This Aqua Tail is going to secure the knockout, and now it's up to the Toxapex. Toxapex always at its most deadly in the Zero Shield. This Crunch will not KO, but it will just about get there. The Crunch gets the Toxapex low. Toxapex committing to a Sludge Wave. This does slightly more damage than a Brine. Can it KO? Yes, it can, and that's a Game 1 win for Lyle. In Game 2, the Shadow Kanto Marowak is back once again, this time leading into Malamar. Malamar goes for the foul play. We see the no-shield by Lyle as he's going to tank that move, and now he's threatening the ability to get to a second Bone Club. SJ is going to no-shield, and he does outpace by 1 singular turn. SJ has to decide, does he care about Switch? He says yes, and he will win Switch advantage. But this energy is going to get completely invalidated by the Azumarill. SJ going for the Superpower 2-limit farm, and now brings in the Feraligatr. But Feraligatr is down a shield and down energy, and unfortunately, this is just looking catastrophically bad for SJ, as this alignment sets up Dugong into Diggersby in the back, and once he sees that, he's going to be in a very difficult spot. This Feraligatr putting in quite a lot of work against the Azumarill. This Hydro Cannon, it is survivable, not by much. Gonna farm up, get to the Play Rough, unable to get the farm down, and this Play Rough will deal significant damage. It will not KO. We see the switch into the Dugong. Dugong going to no-shield. This is an open team sheet format, so it is known that the Feraligatr does not have Crunch. The only trainer who ran Crunch this weekend was actually It's Axon, a former world champion who, not to spoil anything, but we will see later on in this video. Scorching Sands from the Diggersby is going to be shielded. There's a low chance at an attack drop, but it does not come through. Another Icy Wind fired by this Dugong. Icy Wind barely does not secure the knockout, but at this point, SJ knows there's just not a way to win this game, and Lyle advances to day 2. The next match we'll be showcasing is Winners Round 2 versus the 2023 Pokemon Go World Champion, it's Axen. And Lyle picks up a great lead in the first match as he leads Malamar into the Diggersby plus Toxapex core of it's Axen. And this is one of the cores that Malamar does target. Malamar having a positive matchup against both. We will see an attack drop there on the Scorching Sands and a quick switch out by it's Axen. Superpower is going to connect, even debuff. That deals substantial damage. This next Superpower would just about knock out, so we will see the shield from Axen. Lyle gonna stay in this matchup, hoping to get a superpower, but he does not get there. Lyle gonna bring in Toxapex. Toxapex normally a wall 2 energy from Feraligatr, but Axen was the only trainer in Top Cut who made the unique choice to go for Crunch on Feraligatr, specifically to help get some consistent damage into the Toxapex. He's going to aggressively switch out into that Diggersby, but unfortunately it's gonna be answered with that Dugong, and Dugong up a shield, just so deadly, and especially so in this type positive matchup. Icy Wind is going to connect. There is still the Toxapex, but unfortunately, I don't think Toxapex is going to be able to sweep here. Axen would need a catch to have a chance in this game, as there's so much energy available on this Dugong. Dugong is going to go for the drill run at this point. Baiting would be a lose con. Axen is going to use his shield, and it all comes down to a potential catch. Axen tries for the catch. He does not get it, and that's going to be a game 1 win for Lyle, as Lyle will get to connect with the back-to-back drill runs, and that will put it in a range where he can just Sludge Wave with his own Toxapex and secure the win. So by bringing Diggersby, it definitely felt like Axen was trying to potentially catch that Shadow Kanto Marowak. The Marowak stayed on the bench, but Lyle said, I can win without it. In game number 2, a great lead for Lyle, the Shadow Kanto Marowak into the Feraligatr. Now you might be saying, Henry, this is a water type into a ground type. How is this a good lead? This is what Shadow Kanto Marowak can do that the regular cannot. Shadow Kanto Marowak can 2-shield Mud Slap all the way down versus a Shadow Feraligatr. And that's one of the many reasons why the Shadow Kanto Marowak is leagues better than the regular, and why it's such a problem that the Shadow Cubone has not been available in ages, because the Shadow can do things that the regular could never hope to do. Here, the Bone Club is going to land. The Malamar save switch answered with the Shadow Drapion. Drapion going to take massive damage from that superpower. A nice overfarm by Lyle. He will go for the Aqua Tail to pick up the knockout. Aqua Tail is going to KO. In comes the Diggersby. Diggersby, unfortunately, going to pay a heavy price as it's going to take Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail from this Drapion. Diggersby, unfortunately, unable to get that farm down. Going to have to let this go as well. Diggersby, into most things, could do pretty well, but against the Dugong, maybe not so much. But here's the thing. Lyle actually aggressively switched out. That may actually give Axen an opportunity in this game. Axen is going to go for the Crunch. Crunch is going to get the Dugong low. He needs the Crunch debuff. He does not get it. And the Dugong is going to survive and get both Icy Winds. And Axen just going to let that go, understanding the game is over. If he got a Crunch debuff, that could have been a win, but he did not. We now move to winners finals. Lyle, of course, rocking that same team of 6 with the Shadow Kanto Marowak throughout, and his opponent, Arrow, running a very unique team with Shadow Typhlosion, Guzzlord, Galarian Moltres, and of all things, a Registeel, a Pokemon that has fallen out of the meta. In game 1, it's a great lead for Lyle as he leads Shadow Drapion into the Superior. We're going to see a Quagsire save switch, and Quagsire doesn't really have any counters on Lyle's team. Lyle is going to go for a Crunch, gets a Crunch debuff. To win the Zero Shield as the Quagsire, you have to land a Stone Edge. So that's why we saw an immediate no shield there from Lyle. Lyle going to bring in the Dugong. Understanding that Dugong's energy, as long as he just shields here, even if Arrow baits, Arrow's not getting 2 moves here. So you just shield, you farm down, and this energy is so valuable into the Superior. This makes life very tricky for Arrow. Arrow chooses to bring in Registeel now, but Registeel is going to take a lot of damage. These drill runs do add up. While drill run cannot 2-shot, it's going to do quite a lot. Arrow now going to send in Superior, was hoping to catch a drill run. Lyle was very patient with his energy and now gets to connect with an Icy Wind. In comes Toxapex. Arrow is actually running the Leaf Tornado Superior. He goes for the Frenzy Plant here, but debuff, that's not going to do a whole lot. Arrow now going to fish for a debuff. It's a 50-50 chance of getting a debuff with a Leaf Tornado. The Leaf Tornado does get the debuff, but unfortunately that's not going to be enough to save him here. Brian is a very bad move. Double debuffed, it's an atrociously bad move. But even so, Lyle has done a masterful job of keeping all of his Pokemon alive. And Registeel, it's very powerful, but it has no fast move pressure. Lock On only does 1 damage per lock on. So by preserving all these Pokemon, even though Arrow has basically all of the shields he could ever ask for, there's just no way for him to win. He's now forced to shield Icy Winds, which is very unfortunate, going for a Focus Blast. Lyle just going to let it go. He knows Shadow Drapion is the key to victory in this game. In comes the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion doubles up on Aqua Tails. Arrow knows the counts, knows Lyle is at the back-to-back Aqua Tails, realizes there's no win con, and he's just going to concede game number 1. More of a neutral lead in game number 2, Malamar for Lyle, and the Shadow Quagsire for Arrow. This matchup, Malamar will typically emerge victorious the more shields that are in play. We're going to see the double up of Aqua Tails here from the Quagsire. Quagsire firing off Aqua Tail number 1. And Lyle is going to farm up and get a catch of an Aqua Tail onto the Dugong. That is devastating for Arrow. Arrow, that Aqua Tail would have been so threatening against that Malamar, but it just feels like it can do absolutely nothing against the Dugong. Dugong is going to be firing off the Drill Run that will land. Dugong has a pretty significant energy head start, so if Lyle wants, he can 2-shield here. Registeel's pacing not the fastest. Zap Cannon only has, I believe, a 30% chance to debuff. Going for the Drill Run, we see the shield from Arrow. We now see an aggressive switch back, taking advantage of the desync of the timers, firing off Superpower with Malamar, and forcing the shield from Registeel. In comes Guzzlord, looking for the farm down, but not getting it. The spamminess of Malamar, Superpower, even debuff, dealing massive damage to that Guzzlord. In comes the Dugong. Dugong intentionally didn't throw right away, expecting that Arrow would try and cap tie there, overfarmed by 1, realized Arrow was overfarming, and then ended up CMP tying there. So a bit of a funny gamesmanship there. In comes the Registeel going for the Focus Blast, but from here, again, the Shadow Drapion, just too deadly. In comes the Drapion. There is an Aqua Tail available on this Quagsire, but Aqua Tail, it's not going to KO. You just shield with the Focus Blast because it's going to do the most. Trying to go for a potential snipe, but Lyle denies it with the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail picks up the KO. In comes the Registeel, and to be safe, he's going for the double Aqua Tail. Crunch would be lethal here, but going for double Aqua Tail is going to be the more sound play, as it just guarantees the knockout by doing entirely too much damage. So Lyle now up 2-0 in this best of 5. Malamar into Shadow Quagsire. They're running these lines back for game number 3. Well, they're running the leads back at least. The back lines are different. Malamar is going to get hit with the Aqua Tail. Malamar firing off this foul play right before that Aqua Tail is reached. Arrow now deciding to no-shield the Quagsire. Quagsire paying a heavy price as it is now deep into the red. Aqua Tail is going to get the Malamar low. Malamar cannot get the superpower. In comes Dugong, banks an Aqua Tail, brings in the Registeel, and unfortunately for Lyle, he brought the Azumarill, and there is a Registeel plus superior backline awaiting him, so he's in a tremendous amount of trouble. Of course, he doesn't know about the superior yet, so seeing the Registeel switch in, he's got to be pretty happy at the moment, thinking this should clear the path for the Azumarill. Azumarill versus most other things on the team, as you see the 3 Pokemon that weren't brought, the Typhlosion, the Guzzlord, the Galar Moltres would be great, but it is going to be that superior. And from here, Arrow could have done a back-breaking catch of the Drill Run, but instead he's just going to play principled game, saving that superior to the last possible second, firing off the Frenzy Plant, and this game is over. Not going to worry about Leaf Tornado, as Superior very comfortably wins the ones going straight Frenzy Plant, so there's never a reason to go for a Leaf Tornado when you don't have to. So Superior is going to get to launch this Frenzy Plant, and this just does way too much to the Azumarill. Azumarill can survive, but not well. So Azumarill does get to go for the Ice Beam, but Arrow still has the shield intact, so he can shield, Vine Whip down, and we're going to a Game 4 in the Winners Finals, as Arrow is able to stave off the losers bracket. in Game 4. Tricky lead here, honestly, on both sides, leading the Malamar into the Guzzlord. Malamar at back-to-back superpowers. The Brutal Swing fired by Arrow is going to connect, getting Malamar very low. Back-to-back superpowers reached by Lyle, and we see a no shield from Arrow. Superpower connects. That is huge damage. We see it's a CMP tie. Lyle's Malamar able to win it. Arrow just conceding switch. In comes Typhlosion. Typhlosion immediately answered by a save switch into the Shadow Drapion. So Lyle so far staying away from that signature Shadow Kanto Marowak in this series. In comes the Quagsire, and Arrow calls the Aqua Tail bait. That's honestly a pretty big call. Arrow, no shielding again. This Quagsire is going to take quite a lot of damage. Going to fire off this Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail, he's going for an undercharge, but it does barely KO. In comes the Toxapex. He's throwing the Aqua Tail just to burn the switch clock, and then he can bring in Typhlosion. He could have made a Stone Edge, but he just didn't want to give Toxapex an energy head start. Now the question will be, can a Thunder Punch plus the Incinerates KO the bulky Toxapex? That's what Arrow is hoping for here. Gets the Thunder Punch. Is this going to be enough damage? Toxapex, one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the Great League. It's able to hang on here. Toxapex farms everything down. In comes the Quagsire. Quagsire going to be hit with the Brine. Brine is going to be shielded. The switch to the Malamar. Malamar farms down, and Lyle advances to the Grand Finals. In the Grand Finals, there was a first best of 3. Arrow won 3-0 to force a bracket reset. And I actually did cut out those games just because in those games, the Kanto Marowak was not used. In the Grand Finals reset, a fresh best of 5. The good lead for Lyle there, leading the Drapion into Superior, and the Registeel save switch answered with the Malamar, but Superpower does not KO here. Registeel able to force an advantage, and that advantage ends up being switch advantage. So switch advantage, very nice, but in comes the Dugong. This is a brilliant play from Lyle. He gets 4 Ice Shards of energy, and now bringing in the Superior. Superior is so far behind. Superior is going to no-shield the Icy Wind. Icy Wind going to do quite a lot. Arrow going for the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant will inflict big damage. Lyle tries to call the bait. He gets absolutely rocked with that Frenzy Plant, and he's going to fire off this last second Icy Wind. And now it's Quagsire versus the Drapion in the end game. And this game is going to come down to a catch. This is Arrow's game to win unless Lyle catches the third Aqua Tail onto his Dugong. These battlers are going to be trading Aqua Tails back and forth in this matchup. Shadow Drapion with the energy advantage, the pacing advantage, and the CMP tie advantage. But whereas Quagsire can take a move, the Drapion definitely cannot. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. Lyle farming up. He's throwing right beforehand. Arrow now has the move. The question is, when does he throw it? When does Lyle go for the catch? He does one, and the catch! Oh my goodness, devastating for Arrow. Lyle with the perfect prediction. Drapion gets the Aqua Tail, and frustration for Arrow as Lyle escapes with a Game 1 win. In Game 2, there is that Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back. The Registeel save switch for Arrow. He tries it again, and this time Shadow Kanto Marowak is there to say no. Focus Blast. Kanto Marowak does not care. It's going to overfarm, connects with a Bone Club, and after that lands, farm Registeel all the way down. Superior will get an energy advantage here, as Superior not going to take a ton of damage from Rock Slide. Rock Slide is the move that does help something like a Kanto Marowak be better than a Gastrodon, as of course Gastrodon has no coverage into flyers. Arrow farms up a ton of energy. He's baiting with the Aqua Tail, and Lyle calls the bait. What an unbelievable call. If Stone Edge landed, that was instantly game ending. But Lyle, with the prediction that everyone loves to bait a Dugong, gets the call right. And now Arrow's positioning suddenly looks a lot worse in this matchup. Arrow is going to be using a shield on the Icy Wind. This is a heavily debuffed Pokemon. He tries for the combo with the Frenzy Plant, but Lyle's too fast. He's not going to let that happen. Frenzy Plant is going to land on the Drapion, going for the knockout with the crunch. The final shield used by Arrow. Arrow going for a Leaf Tornado, fishing for that potential 2-stage attack drop. It's a 50-50 chance. Leaf Tornado shielded. There is the debuff, but even with the debuff, the Poison Stings have just done too much damage. Crunch will KO. In comes the Quagsire. He goes for the Stone Edge, predicting the catch, but the catch does not happen. If the switch into Dugong had happened, that would have been a win. Arrow predicting the catch, but this time Lyle did not go for it, and Lyle now up 2-0. It's a nightmare lead in game number 3, leading the Drapion into the Guzzlord. We're going to see a save switch into the Dugong, and Dugong is going to be answered with Registeel. That Shadow Kanto Marowak is in the back, and the Kanto Marowak, if the switch advantage holds, this Kanto Marowak is going to be aligned against Superior. So Arrow has got the line call right. Now it's up to Dugong for Lyle to try and make a play for switch. And without getting those Zap Cannon debuffs, it looks like the Dugong can actually flip switch here. Dugong's going to try for it. Shielding up the Focus Blast. Can he get the farm down? He leaves with, I believe, 1 hit point available, but an Icy Wind loaded. And flipping that switch advantage, so important. In comes Drapion, met with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord going to be answered with the Shadow Kanto Marowak. At this point, the goal of the Shadow Kanto Marowak is to get as much damage as you can. These Bone Clubs will add up. The Mud Slaps too. Arrow using a shield, desperately trying to get a sweep with the Guzzlord, but that pacing on the Marowak, the 4-3 pacing, forcing the final shield. In comes the Shadow Drapion. Drapion going to no shield a Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is going to deal some substantial damage. There's another Dragon Claw. Lyle has to shield this. It would do too much damage. We see the switch into Superior, and this is all going to come down to can Superior tank the Crunch plus the Poison Stings. Crunch debuff. He does not get there. And Lyle Jeffs is crowned the Pokemon Go Regional Champion in Louisville for the 2025 competitive season. All in all, Shadow Kanto Marowak is an absolute force to be reckoned with. And Niantic, they have to bring it back. I don't care if it's in Shadow Raids, if it's in Rocket Grunts, or even if they do a limited time research. They need to make this Pokemon more accessible so people who didn't play 2 years ago, or who just didn't save it because at the time it was completely worthless, have access to this Pokemon. It, to me, is the best ground type that you can use. Its coverage is unbelievable. And as we saw with 2 Shadow Kanto Marowaks in the top 3 in Louisville, the other one being the 3rd place finisher, Nighttime Clasher, this Pokemon is here to stay in this new meta. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.